Are you curious to hear about sources of retirement income in Canada and how they are taxed? If that's the case, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about the different sources of retirement income and how they are taxed. And the way I see it, I really see it as three pillars. One, you have the government benefits. Two, you have the employment pension plans. And lastly, it's your private savings and investments. Okay, so let's start off with the government benefits. The first one is the Canada Pension Plan, and that provides a monthly retirement pension. And if you have contributed, because it's based on how much you've contributed over your working years, you could take funds from this as early as age 60, or you could delay it as long as age 70. And the longer you delay it, it's the more you receive, and the earlier you take it, it's the less you receive. I have an entire video on CPP. You can check my channel. You'll see me discussing that and how it works. There's also the old age security, and that's also a monthly payment, and it's available to most Canadians at age 65 and older. Now, I know some people confuse CPP and OAS, and some people think that you can take OAS at age 60. That's actually not the case. It starts at age 65. And the longer you delay, the more you receive also. The amount received is based on how long you've lived in Canada after age 18. And if you've been here for at least 40 years, then you qualify for the maximum amount. The minimum amount of years you need to at least get some type of payment is 10 years, and it's really proportional. So for example, if you have only been here 20 years after age 18 before you start collecting OAS, you'd have only received half the amount of the full qualification that you would have received had you taken age 65, right? So that's OAS. And the difference there too is the CPP is really based on your contributions, and OAS is based on your residence and being a permanent resident. You don't have to necessarily contribute. Then we have the GIS. Now, GIS is money that's provided to folks who qualify for OAS. So they're really OAS recipients, but they have a low income. So based on your income threshold, what happens is the government will provide you with GIS income. I will talk about how that's taxed, but it really depends on your annual income and also your marital status. Now let's talk about the employer-sponsored pension plans. You have the defined benefit plan. You also have the defined contribution plan. Defined benefit plan, as the name suggests, is a guaranteed amount. And that really, the way that works is an employer will look at your salary and your years of service, and based on that, they will tell you, and usually have a portal you can log into, or you could call whoever is responsible for administering these plans, and they could tell you how much you qualify for now and the trajectory you're on. But the beautiful thing here is the amount that you receive is guaranteed for life, right? Then you have the defined contribution plan where the employer is contributing, and you as an employee can also contribute. And the retirement income depends on investment returns. That means you're contributing monthly, but it is being invested in some type of fund or portfolio, and it depends on what the market does. That's what your return will be based on, right? So you have investment returns of these accumulated funds over time. More recently, I've been seeing a lot more defined contribution versus defined benefit. And of course, the reason for that is because with a defined benefit, the employer has all the risk because they have to provide that return for life. With a defined contribution, the risk is more on the employee, and it's on the employee because it depends on what the market does. Now let's talk about your personal savings and investments. The first one is the registered retirement savings plan. I also have a video on that, so check it out. And the investment here is tax deferred in this retirement savings plan. However, your contributions are tax deductible. So when you contribute, you receive a tax deduction, and that money grows tax-free until withdrawal. Then we have the tax-free savings account. Now, when you contribute to the TFSA, you don't get a tax deduction, but a beautiful thing is that it grows tax-free, and the withdrawals are also tax-free. And then last, we have a non-registered. I want to say non-registered, people go, what is a non-registered? As the name suggests, it's just something that hasn't gotten any type of preferential treatment in terms of for tax purposes or government purposes. So the RSPs, when there's tax deductions and it kind of goes tax deferred. TFSA, you don't get the tax deduction, but it goes tax free and withdrawals tax free. With non-registered investments, you don't necessarily get that. We're going to talk about how they're taxed and how they're treated, but you don't get those protections, right? And this could include mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, real estate, and other investments that could be placed in a non-registered funds. Now let's talk about the taxes. How do these investment, how these different accounts are treated? CPP treated as ordinary income. So it's just if you earned as you're working, you probably file your taxes and you're paying taxes on your ordinary income. CPP is treated just the same way. OAS is also treated as ordinary income, and it's also subject to a clawback if your net income reaches a certain threshold, right? So you get the income, but if you reach a certain threshold, the net income will if the net income's a certain level, then you have to you get hit with what's called a clawback, and that money gets returned, right? Then we have GIS. It's not taxable, but it's affected by other income sources, which could reduce the amount received, right? So you may get it and it's not taxed, but it's all based on a certain threshold. And we're going to talk about how important it is to have different accounts towards the end of this video, because as you can see here so far, ordinary income seems to be the more prevalent one. And it doesn't stop, because when you look at employer-sponsored pension plans, both defined benefit and defined contributions are treated as ordinary income. Your RSPs are fully taxable also when you withdraw from them as ordinary income. And an RSP converts to a RIF by the end of the year when you reach age 71. And there's a minimum amount that's required to be taken out. And even then, it's also treated as ordinary income. TFSA, it is the saving grace. It is non-taxable. So when you withdraw from a TFSA, it's non-taxable. And this is really important because a lot of times people think of tax-free savings account, and all they do is save in this account as opposed to investing in this account with the opportunity to use it in retirement, not realizing how important it is. And this is important because as you realize, certain funds, for example, like the OAS, have a clawback aspect to it, where if you reach certain income threshold, then you get hit with a clawback and that money has to be paid back, right? So once that happens and you see you're reaching that threshold, what could you do from a strategic standpoint to protect yourself? You could start pulling funds from a TFSA, because when you pull from a TFSA, it's not taxable, right? So why it's so important to have a TFSA? Non-registered investments are something to consider also, because there's certain preferential treatment, particularly with capital gains and dividends, which receive better tax treatment than interest income, which is treated also as ordinary income. So if you're strategic in how you have these accounts before you get to retirement, and you give yourself an opportunity to be tax efficient with TFSAs and non-registered investments, what it will allow for is a more tax efficient retirement income, right? And that's why that is so important. Now, I know you may be asking, when should I take retirement income? And I have all these different things. And quite frankly, that is the challenge with retirement in terms of retirement income. When you are working, for most people, they get one source of income, maybe two if you have a rental property or some other sources. But for most people, really, they're working a 9 to 5 or something along those lines, and they get one source of income. Now they get to retirement, you have CPP, you have OAS, you have RSPs, you have TFSAs, non-registered, all these moving parts. And you're thinking, okay, what do I take? When do I take it? How is it taxed? This is why it's so important to have a financial plan in place, because there is no cookie cutter answer for this. There is no one set framework. It changes. And quite frankly, depending on the years when you're pulling sources, pulling from these different retirement sources, it may also change. So what's important is to have a framework and to be strategic before you even get to retirement. And I always recommend at least 10 years before you get to retirement, start to allocate these funds with an idea of what retirement may look like. Now, will it be exact? Maybe not. But at a minimum, what it will allow you to do is create some flexibility, particularly with looking to accounts like TFSAs and non-registered, or if you have an RSP that's growing at a high rate, is to start to pull from that and allocate into different funds in years where you're in a lower income. Just be strategic. It may also mean delaying CPP and OAS, because taking all of these things with other benefits may put you in a higher income bracket. right? There are all these different moving parts, and each individual has their own situation. So you can't necessarily create a cookie cutter framework to do it. And that's why it's so important to start planning at least 10 years in advance for your retirement income. But if you're already in retirement and you are where you are, it's also great to start having a financial plan now on how you should start withdrawing from these funds, which is so important. Hopefully, this was helpful. Hopefully, this provides you with some information. A lot of the funds I talked about, like RSPs and CPP and OAS, I've done videos about, so you can check those out after. Again, once a week, based on conversations I have with clients, I come here and I speak for 8 to 10 minutes and share it with the world. Take care.